A broken heart can hurt so much, you can taste it, even from the outside, looking at what we think are the most inspirational and strongest people that have a life of luxury, spectacle, and mystery. We found that Anthony Bourdain was a man with fear and feelings just like anyone else. He was a person with many talents, many loves that the world allows one to have. His voice was one of comfort, instructing, educating in taste, and really the lovable character of Anthony himself. There's darkness in those last days of his life, unfairness of why what happened took place. It's a moment in time that no one saw where Anthony Bourdain took his own life.
I was feeling really bad about being away from my daughter so much. And at one point, I came home exhausted, and I said, honey, I'm really thinking about, hanging it up maybe in a year or two so I could spend more time with you. She burst into tears. She said, no, Daddy, your job is so interesting. What will I tell my friends?
Anthony has made a career on top of a career, of being a successful chef, owning restaurants, TV shows, making appearances in movies, and becoming obsessed with martial arts himself, that he says keep him calm and allow him to build a new obsession. Anthony, who was a master with capturing fame and fortune by excelling in his interests, although he never seems to capture the one element men desire to have with their kingdom, a long-lasting love to grow old with. Anthony's love life was scattered throughout the decades of his life. He was building a career most of the time. At the end of his life, his career was in no means on a downward trend. It was quite the opposite. His work schedule became more hectic each year, traveling 250 days out of the year around the world, which would become a problem while trying to raise a daughter and have a marriage. Anthony's wife, Octavia, who we never officially divorced, they shared custody of their daughter. The two would separate in 2016 and start dating other people. Maybe they thought they would come back to each other, but this would be a moment in time where things begun to fall apart slowly, one by one for Anthony. God gives us meat, but the devil sends us cooks. The very words of Anthony himself. His last year of 2018 was a year full of adventure, but being shattered by many elements that people still, some say lost of trust, some say mental breakdown. But before those final moments, Anthony's last full year in 2017, he walked into a new relationship with Asia Argento. The two started dating while Anthony was filming his TV show, Parts Unknown. His last full year of 2017, the two immediately started dating and found themselves spending much time together, as much as they could. His last full year of 2017 was no different than any other year. He was busy, as usual, but seeming to be blissful. When Anthony and Asia were together, it was good, fun, and exciting, but that's just it. When they were together, Asia says they were happy, but started to develop problems, and saying they weren't children. Anthony was gone most of the time, and Asia knew that he had cheated on her from what she says. She says she does the same. It's still not known in great detail of how often the two were aware of their unfaithfulness to the other one, but it would become a problem in the end. It made for petty arguing. Even though Anthony and his wife were apart from each other, they remain in contact with one another, still spending time with their daughter together when they can. Towards the end, Anthony would tell his wife something in confidence. He would say to her, I hate my fans, I hate being famous, I hate my job, I am lonely and living in constant uncertainty, and even being caught on film, lying down for a therapy session. Anthony answers questions from a therapist on his TV show Parts Unknown. He was asked if he was happy. He replied, no, I'm not, saying that he wanted to harm others, and at other times wanting to harm himself. There's an interview that's not well known, but it's towards the end of Anthony's life, where he says something that's disregarded at the moment. While giving an interview, he talks about a scene that went wrong while filming and how disgusted and angry he was, saying that he wanted to harm everyone, feeling sad, angry, and having the very words of saying he wanted to go back to his hotel room, step into the shower with a rope, and harm himself. The interview is shocking to listen to and morbid because it's essentially what would happen if you dig through conversations following the breadcrumbs of people that have harmed themselves in the past. You can find more than you thought you would. Having moments such as that, talking of harming themselves, someone just completely missing the mark, like Anthony. It's a moment where someone's screaming out in a quiet way, saying that they're going to do something, and that they're becoming scared of themselves, that they're losing control. There's little moments like this throughout the years, where Anthony was silently screaming out. It's just in small quotes, jokes, or statements that are shocking, but are completely bypassed in mainstream media interviews. Anthony, now with his new love, spend much time together in the public. The relationship is open, and they make a nice little target for the paparazzi at times. It seemed fun, exciting, but like many relationships, it was fun till it found rough roads. In 2018, Anthony, to friends and family, seems normal. He's busy filming his TV show. Anthony, along with flying, eating, meeting people, having a hectic schedule, he's the face of a major TV show that he also writes in. His hand in Parts Unknown went much deeper than people may realize, gifted with narration and finding the right special words in a conversation. As he continues to film Parts Unknown, it's later revealed by a friend that Anthony reaches out, saying that he's having trouble in his own mind, finding it difficult to lift his head off the pillow, and from time to time having thoughts of harming himself, that there's just never going to be a better day. The last week of Anthony's life in June of 2018, many elements had started to all come together that made for a terrible storm in his mind. He was in the middle of a grueling schedule, shooting his TV show. It's said in those last days of shooting, he's not upbeat and kind. He's short-spoken and grumpy, because in the background, he's losing control. He had asked Argento to come with him to France while he worked, but she said she couldn't, with not much explanation why. But soon enough, Anthony would see pictures of Argento with another man in Rome, in the same restaurant hotel where Anthony and Argento loved to spend time together. Anthony was furious and heartbroken. He then took to searching the web, looking for more pics, recent ones, of who she was with. It's been said by Argento that they had an open relationship, but with rules of do's and don'ts. But either way, Anthony was not handling seeing her with another man. He calls her, they argue, eventually hanging up the phone on one another. Then they start texting. Anthony would text her saying, "I am okay. I am not spiteful. I am not jealous that you have been with another man. I do not own you. You are free. But you were careless. You were reckless with my heart." Later that night, through more texting, Argento would break off their relationship. The next day, Anthony would talk to a friend about what was happening, letting the friend know the situation and where he was in his mind. He wasn't in a good place, even so much so that that very night, his friend said, being in the room next door, he would put his ear up to the wall to see if he could hear Anthony inside his own room. He said that he heard him snoring and felt relieved. He knew what kind of headspace Anthony was in. But on June 7th, Anthony's last day, the situation would just get worse. Anthony had a full day of work, but that night he was drinking and hurt. He messages Argento once again, saying, "Is there anything I can do?" She would reply, "Stop busting my balls." Anthony writes back his last words, "Okay." That's it. All contact is lost with Anthony from that point on. He's locked in his hotel room in a little village in France with beautiful scenery and a beautiful restaurant attached to it. Places that people only dream to ever see. Really, in these dark last moments, we don't know what Anthony was thinking with contemplating of hurting himself, trying to talk himself out of it. It seems that he made the decision in a moment of darkness. He leaves no note, just like he had spoken about before in detail. He walks into his bathroom, steps into the shower, ties a belt around the shower head, and from there, he hangs to death. At 61, in a moment of pain and a thought that he's had for years, he's gone. All the clues lead right back to what he had been saying many times before. The hotel room, the shower. It seems that he had made his decision to take his life long ago and was fine with it. It was just something he kept in his pocket, knowing it was always there. He's found the next morning by his close friend. Days later, his body is cremated in France and sent back to family in the United States. When we try to find blame for Anthony's life, why it ended the way it did, people want to point fingers. And why shouldn't they? They're upset. They don't know the full story. They only know they're mad, and they don't want to accept what happened. But in the process of that, many people blame Argento. Really, Anthony's ending seemed to be unavoidable. Talking more and more towards the end of his life about his own demise, it seems that he was going to end his time on Earth sooner than what people wanted. Whether it was a breakup from a love or something much simpler in life, just a bad day, there had already been a bomb that had been sitting and built, waiting to be ignited. There's never answers why when someone harms himself. It's unfair that Anthony attacked himself and couldn't find the joy that people found in him. A simple joy, but sometimes simple things are the hardest. In the end, Anthony left many people that loved him, friends and family, 2 women that still adored him, but most importantly, his daughter, taking the hardest hit, losing her father. It's not fair that the world got so much of him, and she got so little. The deep, sweet voice of a tall man who taught us how not to waste food and what to look out for when you walk into a restaurant, that we'll always enjoy and be captivated by. Long live the memory of Anthony Bourdain.